Welcome to the STARS program, seniors taking active roles in society. And now, here's your host, ANITA FINLEY.
Okay, everybody, so we have an author. You know how I feel about authors. I admire them so much because they work so hard at their craft, and then some are large books and some are small books. But Al DeFilippo, he's a little crazy because he wrote a book. We've had him on before, Black Country, the Asbury Triptych series, and it is so absolutely fabulous. It's called Black Country, and he told us why it was Black Country, and now he's come back to tell us, since the last time you came, Al, what has happened with your life or your books, because you do have two other books that are part of that series.
All right, the other books are in the works.
Sorry.
The other books are in the works.
I got too comfortable with him.
The second book, which is Beggar Bishop, I have the front cover is done. It's beautifully done on, you can see it on the website. A good friend of mine, Tyler Fegley, he's a talented graphic artist, and he did a phenomenal job with it. We actually have the artwork from Richard Douglas, who was... I think Richard is still alive. I don't know for sure. He was suffering with Parkinson's. He lives in England, and last time I contacted him was through snail mail. You know, he didn't have computer or email. And I would like to hear back from him, but I haven't, you know, and it's been, one of those things where I think kind of in my heart that he's kind of, really struggling with his disease. But he did a beautiful painting of Asbury. He did actually a couple of them that I'm going to use. On Beggar Bishop, the second book, that's the cover that he'll do the front cover on that. You know, Tyler took that and ran with it. And then the third book, he has a beautiful picture of Asbury on a horse on a mountain ridge.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, he's an oil painter, and it's, which is kind of different from the first book, which was done by a watercolor artist, John Hurst.
Which is really very beautiful.
Yeah, John Hurst did amazing work on the first book here. This is, we kind of touched on that last time we talked when we were closing out. He, basically sent me the picture. He said, if you like it, pay me for it. If not, send it back to England. Right. And but he does beautiful watercolors. His website is Marshland Arts. If you know the southeastern coast of England, a lot of marshlands and bogs, and he does these beautiful paintings, watercolor paintings of that region. So.
Well, let's get into this. It's funny. Last time you were here, I didn't say anything about this, but I wanted to talk about it now. Francis Asbury, of course, the book's all about him, and he's an amazing guy, but he says, I must ride or die. It's funny. I wanted to ask you about that last time, but I forgot, so now I wasn't going to miss that this time.
He, like we talked before, he has this wanderlust. It was kind of built into him, which was unique because in the beginning, when he's first becoming a young preacher in England, he's actually disciplined before it because... he's kind of disobedient when he's assigned to a certain region that he had been, familiar with. It was basically his home territory. When he was a young child, his mom would go to prayer meetings or to gatherings to listen to other circuit riding preachers. And there was young Asbury in his teenage years, and he would read scriptures or he would, pray, be asked to pray, because he did have a gift, you can tell from the beginning. But he wanted to get beyond that, and that I must ride or die were his words, basically. And excuse me, what's unique is when he gets to the United States, it really comes to life because he's coming to these, the 13 colonies that are basically, it's a virgin forest is what it is, and he just has this wanderlust to travel. And I just think that was built into him, and that's where that expression comes from. So.
Well, the other part about this is the fact that most people, until you wrote this book, and I actually read it, didn't realize that this was the person that actually founded the Methodist, well, whether he founded it, but he promoted the Methodist religion.
In America, yes.
In America.
Yeah, John Wesley and Charles Wesley pretty much are credited with the founding of Methodism in England and Ireland, Scotland, and Wales. But in America, all of that falls to Asbury because basically when the Revolutionary War breaks out, all the English preachers head back to England. So Asbury's here by himself. But he knew, it was his calling, and he basically persevered, through the 7 or 8 years of the Revolutionary War, where he's looked at as a British spy. He survives assassination attempts. He survives, mobs that basically want to beat him. In England, when he's a young preacher, it's really ironic. In England, Methodism was looked at as being against the king, because they came out of the Anglican Church. They were trying to purify the Anglican Church. It was corrupt at the time. When he gets to the colonies, it's the complete opposite. He's looked at as if he's for the king, so the colonists don't like that. So he's consistently a fish out of water. And that's what I loved about, Asbury and writing about him was, it makes these external conflicts are so easy to write about, but they're also very dramatic and draw a reader in, and they drew me into his life story,
I never asked you this. Are you a Methodist?
No. I grew up in the Catholic Church. I was confirmed in the Catholic Church. I also, there was some valuable things I took from that experience. And I also had the privilege of worshiping in a Methodist church at one point. My wife and I were married in a Methodist church.
That was before you knew you were going to do this.
Right. And it's funny, my confirmation name is Francis from the Catholic Church.
Now, this is really interesting.
That was, right. Long before I even understood what this was about. Somehow. I guess so.
But so the big thing about him is even though he didn't have education in a sense, he's so intelligent. It was just a natural intelligence, because he never went to a religious school. He never did anything to learn this. It's an amazing story.
He self-taught himself Latin, Greek, and Hebrew. He has a Hebrew Bible that I believe it's in the which museum is it? It might be the museum. It's up in New Jersey. It's a Methodist museum. But he taught those languages to himself so he could read the original scriptures in Hebrew and read the original New Testament in Greek. So, and plus Latin in that day was still handed down from the Catholic influence, I guess which millennium was that? So, the second millennium, I guess. So.
But the point of this whole thing is, I know you know this, but I'm just going to share this with our audience. Before the Asbury Triptych series came with the Black Country and all about this, I don't think that I've ever heard of him other than we know Asbury Park and all. I had no idea who this person was.
It's unique.
You really made him into the hero.
Well, thank you. That's who he was. Calvin Coolidge, when they dedicate this huge granite, equestrian monument to him in Washington, D.C., basically called him one of the builders of our nation. And that fascinated me because I always was fascinated with our founding fathers. This is probably the most successful human experiment in 5,000 years of recorded human history, the United States. And as I dove into Asbury's story, I understood what he meant. Who was it? Alex de Tocqueville, about 100 years after Asbury's life, traveled the United States, the early United States, to see what made it so successful, and it was that sense of community that was found in the Judeo-Christian value, the Jewish and the Christian faith.
And I think that even though we've had the internet, I think we're going back to that. That community now is everything, because people need it and they lost it. And families, the same thing. That families they live so far apart, but yet now somehow they're coming back together, whether it's through the internet or something.
Right. In community, you find sense of purpose, you find sense of value, you find security. Those are things that we as human beings crave. And
now, something I don't remember, and that's funny, I guess I've read too many other books. Was he married and did he have children?
No, he was basically married to what he was doing in the colonies, creating the church. He did have a love interest, though, in England. It was unique. It surfaced about 80 years ago. They had commissioned to gather his letters and created a 3-book production. Basically 2 books are his journals, and then 1 book is just all of his letters that he had written and received. And in one of the early letters, when he's writing back to England, when he's in the colonies very early on, he mentions a young lady named Nancy Brooks, and he's inquiring how she is. Well, come to find out, the Brooks family was a prominent family basically in the neighboring town. So in Black Country, what I basically did, since it is a novel, I was able to take a little bit of freedom, and I developed their relationship early on because they're neighboring cities. But then, as you get later in the book, I kind of followed what I'd found in the letters,
Yeah, so. Because it was hard for me to know this was a novel. I mean,
right, I remember you saying.
And I still do. I mean, it's so real.
Well,
and
thanks.
so you took all the truths and you put all sorts of nice little things on there to make it interesting.
Well, I have an ulterior motive. I would love for someone like Julian Fellows or someone who did Downton Abbey, somebody to pick up this and run with it. I wrote it for television,
Yeah.
And
it's so
Masterpiece
perfect.
Theater, that type of.
I can see it. I mean, I can't see it just like you can, but maybe it just has to be there kind of cogitating a little bit. I don't know, but it really was great. So tell us, and the other question I have. There are, I think I said there was how many pages? 700 or something?
735.
735. Now, I have read enough of it, and I read a lot, and I always find, a comma, a period. I have not found one typo. Who did your...
My editing was done by Sherry Parmalee. She's in Maine. She's phenomenal. What was unique, too, was I had contacted several editors. She was the only one that wanted to take what I was already doing and enhance it. The other ones wanted to really mold and shape what I was trying to do and steer it in different directions. And what was unique also was as we got into this, she goes, I need to share with you that I've spent extensive time in England. So
it was perfect.
Right. Yeah. I was, I believe in the acknowledgments I get. I forget how I worded it, but I said she deserved an award. Because I come from a long line of family that tends to butcher the English language, and we do the best we can with it. But she did a phenomenal job sharing.
She did. It was so, everything was just the way it was supposed to be. That's why when
it was 8 months of editing, back and forth. It was a lot of blood on the page.
Yeah. So. And of course, you this is not what you do all the time. That's the interesting thing. You are not a full-blown author.
Right.
Would you like to be?
Yes, I would. Yeah. I would love to have the privilege to do this full-time. I have a half a dozen books that I would like to write. So.
Well, you'll enjoy this. I was at a press conference yesterday on the Viking Ships.
Right.
And the Viking Ships those are the river ships, the river, cruise line.
Mm-hmm.
But it was the new, they have about 3 ocean cruise ships. And it's Scandinavian, so it was really gorgeous. The reason I mention it is because this ship was left yesterday for 130 days.
Oh, wow.
To go to every major country in the world. I mean, and I was thinking, that's what brought it up for me. You could just get on there and do nothing but see things and write, right?
Exactly, yeah. It would inspire quite a bit.
So wave my magic wand for you.
Well, that's Kim's, one of my wife's dreams. She would like to take one of those cruises. It's funny. One day one of those came in the mail and she's like, can you believe this? We've been just talking about this,
cruise?
And I'm saying, well, I guess somehow I'm going to have to make that happen,
The river cruises,
now
this was the regular big ship, but that's what they're famous for, their cruise,
right.
Their river cruises. And I feel the same way. I'd love to do that. But it's just, you need time, though. You need time to sit quietly and write more. So what's going to happen with the other 2? Now, when are they going to actually come out?
Beggar Bishop, I kind of stopped on it. I'm almost complete with, about 3/4 away complete. It wasn't that I wanted to stop. We had, my wife and I bought a house about a little over a year ago, and I lost my writing room. So, and I'm the type of guy, I like to be home when I'm writing. I don't know, I just feel more comfortable there. I've tried writing in the library. I've tried writing at my office, which I'm at all day, which I really don't want to be there at night too. And writing takes, it's a discipline every day. I pretty much wrote 6 days a week. I would write 3 or 4 hours every night after work. And then I would write on, a full day on a Saturday, maybe half day on a Sunday. I usually would take Friday night off. During football season, I would take Monday night off so I could watch a little football, have something a little different. But it's a discipline.
Your wife's been very patient, hasn't she, with you?
I think she's happy I'm doing something. Because she's a good reader. She reads a lot, so she's always into a book, which is good. So she's
encouraging you with this.
Right.
Well, so now what you need is a writing room. Maybe you can convert one of your bathrooms or your garage. You have a garage?
Yes, I do. So
there are people who make, as you know, garages into.
Right. I've actually done that.
Oh,
so.
you have?
Not mine, but for others, yeah.
Well, that's another place.
Yeah.
The other thing is there are some beautiful closets that are large enough you can actually make that into your. No, I know.
That's true.
Because you just need to be. When you're into it, you don't hear or see anything else. You're just
right.
on that page, aren't you?
It's true. I fell in love with the country of England writing this book. I really loved writing about the ancient Roman roads. Those roads were built, maybe 100 years before Christ, and then also up to the year 200. So these are roads that were there for, almost 2,000 years, and here Asbury's traveling on them on horseback. They still have the traditional Roman candor where the water slopes off from the top. It's stuff we use today in road building. We basically inherited from these ancient Roman roads. I loved writing about the ancient cathedrals that were built there, maybe about 700-800 years before Asbury's time. YouTube is amazing today. You can take virtual tours of any of these cathedrals now. They have the 360-degree cameras. I'm a plant guy. I love landscaping, herb gardens and vegetable gardens and plants and just writing about the fauna, and the wildlife that would have been around at that period of time, and those were the things that drew me into, in addition to Asbury, drew me into writing this book.
When you think about that, here's this guy in all sorts of weather. Here it's 40 degrees and I can't hardly stand it. So he's out there in the snow,
yes.
the rain, terrible conditions, and he is so passionate. I'm surprised he didn't die an early death because of getting sick with all the disease.
I think his early years hard working in the ironworking industry, basically prepared his body for that. There's one scene in Black Country where he's in a house, and like I said, there was this anti-Methodist movement in England. They saw it as being against the King's Church, which was the Anglican Church. And these guys raid the house, so he has to leap out of a second-story window, and he basically gets on his horse and he goes out into a field that's several miles away, and he basically has to sleep out there in the snow. No covering, and, it was those type of things that he braved. He was thrown into the icy waters off of the Isle of Wight with his horse. Basically, they were trying to kill him and his horse. The River Severn, there's a unique tidal wave that occurs there naturally. He didn't know about it because naturally he grew up in this small town and had never been about. And the first time he's in that town, a mob grabs him, throws him into the sand bed basically of this river, and he's thinking, well, I'll be okay, I'll just wait here. Well, in the scene of the book, basically, he just turns around and this tidal wave overtakes him and just nearly drowns him and his horse. And, those were the things he was facing. So for him to live to 71 when most of his fellow preachers were dying in their 30s, I think it had a little bit to do with the hard work he did.
Let's go back to that particular event.
Right.
You found that in letters or that was made up?
No, these are things that fellow preachers experienced, and basically what I did was I incorporated that in some of his life because they were all experiencing these same things. Asbury did not keep a journal in England. I wish he did, because his journal in America, basically from day one till pretty much the day he died, he wrote something every day, which was nice. It makes the second and third books much easier to get through and to really tie into what he was experiencing.
That was early email, wasn't it? I mean, to have recorded everything. Here it's cold, it's dark, and he's recording all this, and I guess he knew he was going to be a hero of some sort. He already saw it. Some people are like that, that
I think it's a sense of calling.
Yeah,
I really
that's
do.
what it was.
Yeah.
And he knew that someday someone, let's think about this. So here he has all this documentation in his pouch. Now he goes into the water. It must have gotten wet.
Right.
Think about all this.
That, or it was in his saddlebag when the horse got thrown in the water. Yeah. Oh yes. It's a testament to us today who, I go to church on Sunday and people are reading their Bibles on their phone. Well, I go to church. I have an old Bible, okay? And I write notes in it. I'm hoping to hand that to my grandchildren someday.
Oh, that's lovely.
I want them to know where my heart was at this time of my life,
I didn't know people are reading the Bible on their iPhones.
Oh, yeah, it's amazing. Yeah, this is amazing. You can get not only the whole Bible, there's special devotionals that you can download. So.
I know. It just somehow, I don't know. I like the feel of a book.
Same here.
For me to take and look at this on a...
My wife, Kim, laughs at me because I like to highlight. When you're researching historic history for a historical novel, you're reading a lot of dry, non-fictional stuff, but there's a lot of great facts in there. So I'm one of these notorious highlighters, And she's like, why don't you just not highlight,
Oh, my goodness. Well, she sounds really wonderful. She sounds like she's really found somebody who she can admire. So let me tell everyone, you've been listening to Al DeFilippo, and he is the author of this wonderful book. It was actually our November book of the month in Boomer Times. It's called Black Country, the Asbury Triptych series. It is a book that you'll want to get. You're not going to be able to finish this quickly. It'll be great over the holiday. You can do maybe 25 pages if you can stop there, because it really takes you into the next page and the next page. But it's a big book, but you will learn a lot about America, actually, a lot about the country, back in the 1700s and 1800s.
1700s, late 1700s.
Right. Yeah. But then, of course, it carries forward because now this is the Methodist movement. But you'll admire this man. You'll admire Al, but you'll admire the man himself, Francis, who was, of course, Francis Asbury. And it's a great conversation piece. I would just tell you this, that I went to a show the other night down at something I know you would love. It's the story of Rose Kennedy. But Rose, it's a one person play, and she relates her life. She talks as though she's talking to somebody about her husband, about the children. It's probably one of the finest plays I've ever seen by a one person.
Right.
And I'm thinking about this. There may be stuff to this. This was done by a writer. He was given 2 huge boxes about Rose Kennedy from a biographer, and he took it and put it into a 1.5-hour play. Maybe there's something into this, and if you go there, and I can give you the writer's name and everything, and give you the information, but you ought to go see the show. It'll be there, I think, till the 23rd. It's in the Greenhouse Theater in Meisner Park. You will love it. I mean, even if Kennedy wasn't your favorite family, but I will tell you, you will know so much about her feelings and what happened during that period of history. So I did an interview with them. That's why I was just thinking about it. But you have something special here that I think the same way that, can you imagine having Francis talk about what he saw and what it could be just a minimal amount.
He'd have to have that British accent, though.
Well, they would. Well, even Rose Kennedy, the woman that portrayed her, she's younger than Rose was, but boy, she had it down perfectly.
Right,
she had a little bit of a New England accent, and boy, she was great. And so I do highly recommend for you, because there's something to that for you. Just having it packaged in this over 700-page book, it's got to go somewhere. I've been telling you that since I met you.
Yes, you have, Anita, and I appreciate that. Thank you.
So listen, you really should be very proud of what you've done, and I know that you're maybe it will be a TV series, but we've just got to keep getting people to look at it and figure out a way. You know that we're having our Boomer Expo, and your book will be featured there as one of the books of the month. Okay. So hopefully you'll be there.
All right.
Because it's
in January.
Yeah, it's in January the 16th. Everybody's heard about it. And, and it's funny, so many times I want to call you Francis, but I know you're not Francis, but Al DeFilippo. And tell people again what you do to keep yourself paying the rent and the mortgage.
I manage, it's 8 campuses now for a nonprofit. We're the largest foster care provider in the state. And there's several other states that would love to do what we're doing. It's called Place of Hope. And if you get a chance, check out their website. But we take care of about 300 kids on any given day in the foster care system. But I'm in charge of construction and maintenance. I have a team of 5 technicians, and we basically handle the operations, the repairs on the buildings. We take care of, I guess we're up to about 45 buildings now.
My goodness.
We're busy.
You're always doing something that has a lot of heart to it. I hear this.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I guess, I don't know, who was it that said art must reflect the heart of the artist? Well, I guess your work does too.
Yes, it does.
Might have been Socrates, or I forget who it was.
Yeah, I don't remember that either. But I want to tell you something, Al, that since you came and you talked to our team at our office, I have really thought very seriously about it. But when I tell my son, or I tell somebody, they say, Anita, you don't have time. How could you ever foster a child And I don't know how, but that is very special. And I know people who do this must be thrilled. It's more
a
for
beautiful
the children, though. The children that they now, have a place that's theirs. I mean, look, my little dog, I brought him in and from a shelter. Yeah, Charlie. But I can imagine what it must be like for a child not to have a home. And this could be so great. But as you said, well, maybe I can just go and do some things with the children.
Right. We're always looking for mentors there. Everything from teaching cooking to changing oil on a vehicle, or simple things that we take for granted every day that are not transferred to a child.
I can take a child here to the radio show. I mean, it's very interesting. So
set them up with Richard.
Exactly. What are the ages that they usually have?
We elementary on up to high school, and then we do something unique, which is extended foster care. The state pretty much puts them on the street at 18 years old. On their 18th birthday, they have to leave the traditional foster care system. So we started extended foster care that goes to, I believe, 22. I'm not an expert on this. I'm on the construction side.
You found
Well, we have a couple campuses set up for that, yeah.
And do they work there? Do they do things?
No, they get full-time jobs outside. They participate in our life training skills and classes.
Right. Now, is this religious in them?
It's faith-based, but it's more community style. I mean, we do not reject anybody, even if they're not of faith or if they haven't, But
you have it there if it's good for them, and that they'll do it.
Right, it's their own choice.
Yeah.
It's an option.
I guess we've run out of time again, but Al DeFilippo is the author of our November book of the month, Black Country, the Asbury Triptych series. Now, let's see, if they were going to go, they could just go to Amazon.
They can go to Amazon. It's in print, and also it's an ebook on like Barnes and Noble. You can go to my website too, which is francisasburytriptych.com.
Great, thank you, Al. It's been
Thank
wonderful.
you, Anita.